Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 321st episode of the Alfa Insurance Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. We have a great show today, and we're going to close out the month of January with Cass head coach Steve Gates. We'll talk about some of the latest news, got some more coaching changes, big news out of Osborne High School, and we'll look at spring sports, which are on the horizon. We got the lacrosse season starting up next week, and I believe last night Walton and Lambert scrimmaged and it ended in a tie, so that is big news. It's going to be a great season, but let's go ahead and get started with our guest, Steve Gates. Hey Coach, how's it going?
Well, and yourself? I'm great.
Yep, doing awesome. So thank you so much for coming on. We got to see you and hang out at Rome. You were there watching the Georgia Elite Classic. Cass is coming off a really great season, an exciting playoff run. You guys made it to the quarterfinals. What did that mean just last season for the Cass program, and then how do you guys feel about the prospects this year?
It was a great, obviously exciting season for everybody in the school building, in the locker room, the community. You know, it was 40 years in school made it to the Elite Eight, and it was only the second time in school history of 71 years. So obviously, with that type of stuff going on, it just generates excitement. The kids worked hard. I got a great coaching staff, the same exact coaching staff I've had now for 2 or 3 years, keeping those guys intact, keeping them from going to take other type of coaching staff you have. Administration. Incredible support. I get asked every day, what can they do to help me? So it's a tremendous place to be right now.
Yeah, and what I liked about what you guys did last year is you guys just kept working throughout the season. You didn't let these injuries, this brutal region schedule stop you guys. You guys showed up, competed week in and week out. But let's go back to the start of the season, though. What was the biggest improvement you saw just throughout it?
Offseason last year of how young we were. You know, I think our last year's class was 11 or 12 seniors. This year was only 13 seniors. So we were very young, and for them to mature the way they did this year, and you know, as you know, firsthand here, I'm not in this to go 10-0. I never, as a head coach, it's been successful, and so we're going to keep doing it. Heck, we got North Cobb on our schedule this year. It doesn't matter to me. I'll play anybody, anywhere. Well, who all of us three right here is our life undefeated and it's perfect? It's not. So why set these kids up for failure? Let them face some adversity in their critical years of life at 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, and let them learn how to fight through some adversity, and that's what we do here.
Yep, and you guys knew you had the toughest, most competitive region because you saw what happened the previous year, but it doesn't stop you guys from scheduling those powerhouses. So you guys opened against Rome last year, week 1, a really tough opponent. This Hughes almost like demolished them this year. That was a blowout until Hughes came back late, lost a heartbreaker to Thomas County Central. That's who you guys opened with. This year, though, you're going to open against Callaway. Talk a little bit about that matchup and just what you know about the Callaway program. Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. It'll be a very, very challenging task, and we're looking forward to it.
Yep, state championship program. They're going to go up against the Troops every year. They are a tough football team, well coached, outstanding. But I want to ask you about your defense last year. There were some guys that really flourished as the season went on. Caden Ellis had a huge junior season on that defensive line. What do you feel about that defensive unit heading into next season?
Extremely excited about it. We lost a couple key players. We lost Devin and Kevin Henderson and Sokovie White. But other than that, we're kind of getting everybody else back in one way, shape, or form. So, when you get eight guys back from a quarterfinal defensive team, there's no way not to be excited. So we're excited. We're still a little bit young. We'll be extremely challenging for offensive linemen up front with Caden Ellis and Tay McKibbins. I'm sorry about the wind out here, Craig. It's blowing crazy, but only way I can get cell service. But Caden Ellis is the word that college coaches are telling me is unblockable and explosive. He's going to a great program in App State, and I'm just glad we got him for one more year.
Yep, we saw how impressive the defense was. The defense was. We covered you guys in that Kell game. You guys completely shut down their rushing attack and just got after it. So who in the secondary, though, because you mentioned
You kind of broke up there, Craig.
I was just asking.
Like CP2, but he's like 6'1". He had a great off in January, and White's cousin is here. He had to sit out last year. His name's Nas Florine, and we're looking for some big things out of him. He's going to be a huge player for us in the secondary.
Awesome, and then hopefully we're caught back up. It seemed like there was a delay, but I want to ask you just about Brody McWhorter, your quarterback. Had such an impact last year, really impressed everyone. What did you see from him just being a leader last year and just leading you guys through those tough playoff runs?
Yeah, again, not very good connection. I got 4 bars right here, so I don't know where the disconnect is. But you asked about Brody. Yeah, obviously I posted something last night or reposted something about him dunking. That's the scary part about Brody McWhorter is he's not your typical quarterback. He's not your typical somewhat stiff, stays in the pocket, is just going to take a sack because he can't move. He's a 20-plus miles per hour on catapult kid, which is elite in the country as far as miles per hour speed-wise. And then last night he sent me a clip of him dunking a basketball. I mean, he's a sophomore. So he's not your typical pro-style, stand in the pocket, lazy, and all you can do is throw him. Is going to could end up being a true dual threat, elite type of athletic quarterback in the next 18 months. So we're excited about him big time.
Absolutely, and we have the clip. We're going to try to show it to you right now. I'll give my take on it on the other side.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. No, he's and the thing about Brody, Craig, is he works at it every day. Like not dunking, but the kid works in the weight room every day. He I don't know, maybe he missed a workout on a college visit one day, but other than that, I can't remember the last 2 years of him missing a workout. So he's a weight room junkie. He's getting thick in the chest, his arms, his thighs. And again, I'm predicting Brody will be not only an elite quarterback, which he already is. He's already got several Power 5 offers, but I think he'll be an elite athlete in the next 12 months because he's only getting bigger, stronger, and faster. Literally by the month he is.
Yep, and that's what I love about him because I remember when those offers first started coming in last year, and it's like, okay, Brody's getting on the map, and then every time we watched him, you could just see why. And the way he was able to be that dual threat and the athleticism was really impressive. He played outstanding, and I think he's going to have a huge junior season. But you were a offensive lineman. Did you ever have quarterbacks growing up that used to throw it down in the gym?
Fortunately, at McEachern, where I played, I had Marcus Hinton, who ended up going to play for Clemson, and he could definitely dunk it. But my quarterbacks at Georgia, which was Eric Zier, Greg Talley, Preston Jones, maybe Preston could dunk it. Talley wasn't going to dunk it, and I know Zier wasn't going to dunk it. Zier could probably tell you he could dunk it, but Eric Zier ain't dunking no basketball. So, no, Brody may be my only true one that could do it.
Well, that's awesome because we see quarterbacks have their own unique personality. Sometimes they care about their hair coming out of their helmet, but if his thing's dunking, I think that's a good thing.
Oh yeah, no, he Brody McCorder is a class act kid, respectful, yes sir, no sir, just does what he's supposed to do every single day. And if I had a daughter, I would want her to marry a guy like Brody McCorder. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, and obviously anyone that watched our Georgia Elite Classic game, the sophomore freshman, that was incredible. Him coming down to potentially tie that game up, but obviously he's busy. I think he was at FSU this week. He's got West Virginia coming up. What do you think his schedule is going to be like this offseason, just availability? Is he trying to get these junior days or these visits out of the way now and then just coming to the season focused?
I think, yes. My opinion is Brody will be committed to a school and be done at the end of the summer. So he'll pro to a few spring practices this spring, go visit some schools on some visits, do spring practice here for us, and obviously we'll have 75 to 100 colleges come through during those 10 days. So we'll be loaded with colleges then that'll see him throw at practice and all that stuff, and then we got our summer schedule set with a few visits and some 7-on-7s going on. And then I think he'll probably decide to lay a commitment down and be done in July, early August, so he can concentrate on the season. So he'll be a mid-year guy, a senior year, which is still another year and a half away, but his grades are so good that he'll be done in December of his senior year. So he'll be done, and he'll start recruiting for that particular school and trying to get some more guys up wherever he decides to go.
Yep, I think he's going to be a huge storyline this year. And when we talked in Rome, you were really excited about the offense this next season, the things that you guys were going to be able to kind of modify this year to be more balanced, run through more Brody. What are the expectations just offensively this season and his impact?
Well, when you lose Devin Henderson and Jacoby White, two first-team All-State guys, it's hard to replace those. And what I've told our kids is we're not trying to fill Devin and Jacoby's shoes. You need to make your own shoes. You need to do what you do best. In turn, that's what we'll do best. So I don't know how we're going to look right now. We got 6 or 7 really good football players that are coming back with Brody. And I don't know how those pieces of the puzzle are going to settle in. We'll know more in spring. But he'll have some weapons. One of them's Chase Tatum, the tight end, is going to be a big-time weapon for Brody. 6'3", 225. Colleges are loving him already. So he'll be a huge target, and we're gonna have 4 or 5 kids that can run and stretch the field and run good routes, and Brody's gonna probably break every high school or every CAS school record that's ever been laid down this year. Is I would predict. So.
Yep, absolutely. And Chase Tatum, we saw him in that Cartersville game that you guys looked really good in. We'll just put it like that. But he had a great impact, and I was really impressed. Soft hands, the physicality's there. But you mentioned 13 seniors last year. For context, I remember Norcross that year. They won back-to-back. They had 62 seniors on their team. But what's this?
Lost you, Craig.
I'm saying, how big is this, your senior class? Let's see. Coach, can you hear me? Yeah, try to log out. Let's go. We'll log out and log back in. All right. 1 sec. All right, Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I got you.
Perfect. All right, I was just asking about how big is this year's senior class for you guys?
The one that's the 24, the ones that
Yeah,
are
sorry,
juniors right now.
next year.
Next year, it's probably going to be 20. It'll be a bigger senior class than I've had the last couple of years. And it's not a, I don't know how to put this, but like our senior classes have been kind of small based off of expectations, Again, this isn't the same old little old cast up here in Bartow County. The expectations are only increasing. So if you can't handle a grueling off season, a grueling season, expectations in the classroom, then you're not going to play for this program. And so we lose kids that may normally have stayed because they're being held accountable and the expectations are there. And so our classes are lower now. I expect those to start getting bigger because now they've really bought into what we're doing here. So we'll probably 20. I'd say 20.
Okay. And then one more question about last season, because I forgot to mention, this was just such a huge result for you guys. When you guys hosted Calhoun, final game of the regular season, that senior class, guys like Zakovi, Devin, I think Devin was back from his injury, but what was about that Calhoun game that really put a bow on what you guys have been trying to accomplish these last few seasons?
Well, the previous year, Craig, at place, we feel like we should have won that football game. No disrespect to Coach Stevenson or Calhoun, but we felt like we gave that game away, and our kids remembered that, and we're mad about it. Talked about it in the off season. Would bring it up, midsummer, the Calhoun game. They would bring that up and said they'll never let that happen again. So when Calhoun came over here this year, they had a chip on their shoulder and they played like it, and it really launched us into the playoffs. And obviously the rest is a pretty good stretch. So that had all to do with the kids. There was no motivation needed on my part. It was the kids. The kids felt like they should have won even the previous year.
Yep, and that was one of the most shocking, not in the fact that you guys weren't a good team, but when people saw that score, I think they knew you guys would be a very dangerous number 4 seed. Let's talk one last point about your region next year. It's going to be 8 teams. You're no stranger to these tough regions. Alatoona comes in. Still have Cartersville. Cedartown comes in. Dalton, Hiram, Southeast Whitfield, and then Woodland, Cartersville. How big is it just to play in a region that is going to have such a deep battle for those 4 playoff spots?
Yeah, no, very difficult. When you lose Calhoun out of your region, but you feel your region got tougher, that says something. So when you lose Calhoun and gain Cedartown and Altoona, and I know Altoona had a rough year, but we all have rough years. That's part of football. Altoona will be back. Coach Smith and them down there will get those guys back going. So when you add Altoona and Cedartown to your region, it just made it that much more challenging. So, we'll strap it up, or as I've been saying lately, we were going to have to buckle it up, and that's why I scheduled our off season. I think 8 of our 10 opponents, Craig, are playoff teams from last year. So, and again, I did that based purely off of our region. I mean, why would I want to go 4-0 and beat people up in non-region and play some North Georgia teams and just, get wins and then go to this region? It would be a culture shock. It would be a shock every time we stepped on the field. So I'd rather get that out of the way, win some, lose some early on to get us ready for this difficult region.
Awesome. And then what have you seen just from the team in the weight room, just how they're attacking this offseason, how motivated they are to continue the success felt last year?
Just killing it. They're absolutely killing it. It's kind of a little bit different vibe. We relied on Devin and Sokovie and Kevin so much the last few years that we were kind of top heavy, if that's a good word or phrase, top heavy with those guys. And now we got a bunch of really good footballers that will be more leveled. I think will be more efficient, spreading the ball around more. And the kids in the weight room are just absolutely killing it right now. So we're excited. A lot of energy, it's just amazing to me the stories that cast people tell me about, 15 years ago, there were nobody ever dreamed of a Georgia Tech head coach flying a helicopter into Cass High School, and Coach was helicopter in here the other day. So, and Coach Smart's been here in his helicopter. So we're just creating a lot of excitement, the buzz, the kids, they're playing hard. They're doing well in the school. Had a 3.32 team GPA. Are you kidding me? A 3.32 overall team GPA. So the expectations are everywhere on and off the field.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Coach Gates, for joining us. We will certainly be keeping track of you guys heading into kickoff in this Corky Kell in 2024 season. So thanks, Coach, and we'll see you later.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate what you guys do for high school football.
You bet. All right. So there goes Coach Gates. And, yes, you can't say enough about how big last year was for them to get in the playoffs after the tough loss to Cartersville in overtime. They ended up actually losing 3 straight region games. And then that was with Devin out. They lost to Cartersville, Dalton, and Hiram. So it was all on the line. This was actually the second to last week of the regular season, if you remember. It concluded the next week, and so this was Calhoun and Cass going head-to-head for that final playoff spot, and they won 52-29, just completely dominated the matchup. Brody played with confidence, knew his future was on the line. He didn't want to go out. As I said, you don't want the season to end in the first round. You definitely don't want it to end the first possible week. And so they continued their season, ended up making it to the quarterfinals for the first time in 40 years since 1983. Last year was actually the first time they ever made back-to-back playoffs. This year was the first time they ever made 3 straight, and it was also the first time they've ever made it past the first round in back-to-back seasons. They famously had a first-round upset over Jefferson the previous year. So something about Cass, they're battle-tested, and then once they get into the playoffs, they are ready to roll. And Brody is going to be a huge storyline. Already has the FSU offer, the West Virginia offer, and he's going to blow up this season. All right, but let's take a quick break, and we'll be back on the other side.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
Hey, does it matter if this leaks?
It don't matter to me. Can't see it from my house.
Illegal use of hands, improper training.
GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com has 14 different highly skilled trades with tuition-free training in our certified apprenticeship programs to train you the right way. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
All right, welcome back. So, yeah, Brody McWhorter, he has the offers. 247 hasn't rated him any stars yet, but I think what you heard from Coach Gates is going to be true. He has this planned out. He's got his junior season coming up. This is where he really breaks into the scene. He'll have his senior season, and then he's going to be ready to go by December. And he has the potential to be that key piece in the recruiting class, whether he chooses FSU, West Virginia. Kirby was there. Coach Key was there. He's going to be, as an early enrollee, someone that can really help them out. And you heard in the interview, he said he expects them to be committed by the end of this summer. So that's why he's on these trips right now, and he's ready to get this locked in and then focus on getting it done on the field. So congrats to Brody. Keep it up. And the dunk is a big deal. That is such a confident boost for a high school kid when you can kind of get that dunk for the first time. I remember I was a senior when I dunked for the first time, and it was funny. I went to the Atlanta Sports Hall of Fame. It was their first ever year, and that was when Bobby Jones, the golfer, got in. I think it was John Smoltz, Bobby Cox, the Braves manager, and then Dominique Wilkins was there. And so the first ever day I dunked, I got to see Dominique and say hi to him, and I was like, this is the best day ever. Like, I dunked for the first time, and I'm hanging out with Dominique Wilkins. So Brody, keep it up. You're a sophomore dunking. You're going to be able to take it back and, throw it off the backboard. You're going to have a lot of fun. All right, so let's get into the big coaching news that happened with Osborne. So with Cass, it's a team that made history last year by making it to the quarterfinals. Well, Osborne really made history. They made the playoffs for the first time in their 68-year history. So this is a big deal. That's Lukman Salam is stepping down. A key aspect to Osborne not only was Coach Salam, but was his offensive coordinator last year, which was Philip Ironside, the former Hillgrove head coach. So Coach Salam and Coach Ironside were both at Hillgrove together. They knew what they were taking on at Osborne, a program that, as we'll see, has not had much success in terms of the win columns. They did a phenomenal job this year, and it was kind of that old school brand of football that they implemented that allowed them to get off to a 7-0 start. And I think when they beat Kennesaw Mountain, they did not attempt a pass the entire game, and looked at a lot of the teams that had success last year that made deep runs. They went back to that old school model, physicality. When you have all these teams focusing on 7-on-7 and all that throughout the offseason, if you come up with a triple option and just take it to them, that is a matchup problem for teams that aren't accustomed to it. So let's look at what they accomplished at Osborne, and then kind of see who's going to take over. But after turning around the long struggling Osborne football program, Coach Lukman Salam is leaving the team. He went 13-17 in just 3 years. So he was there for 3 years. I'm going to get to a pretty incredible stat in a second, but 13-7 in 3 seasons, and led them to the first state playoff appearance in program history. At this point, Salam said he is considering what his next step will be, but he said leaving Osborne is not an easy decision. It's time, he said. It's with a heavy heart. I've loved my time at Osborne. What Salam and his coaching staff, including longtime Cobb County coach Phil Ironside, as his OC did, was turn a program around that was consistently challenged. Salam, a Smyrna native who made his head coaching debut at Osborne after previously serving as an assistant under Ironside at Hillgrove, took over a team that had only won 2 games in the previous 5 seasons combined, and just 13 in the last 10 seasons. So they average 1.3 win per season. In Salam's first season in 2021, the Cardinals went 1-8. The following season, however, Osborne started the season 5-0 in non-region play, averaging 50.2 points per game. The region play proved to be more difficult, and they finished the year 5-5. So that was 2022. started 5-0, finished 5-5. This past season, Osborne finally broke through. Again, the team started 5-0 in non-region play, but then added its first region victories since 2011, a dominant 35-3 win over Kennesaw Mountain. That was one where they did not attempt to pass, and a 28-7 win over Cherokee. It led to the program's first winning season since 1994. Osborne entered its Week 10 game against Wheeler with a perfect 7-0 record, and a victory would have set up an 8-0 team against an 8-0 Walton team for the region title, but Wheeler ended up winning 17-10 in double overtime. So they were right at the cusp of victory in that one. While the loss ended Osborne's best chance to compete for a potential home playoff game, thanks to outcomes in other games, Osborne did punch its tickets to the playoff that night. The Cardinals played their final 3 games of the season without starting quarterback Edward Burr after he suffered a season-ending injury and finished with a 7-4 record. Salam said he taught his team, and so he went out right before the North Cobb and then Walton game, and then who would they have matched up in the first round? The 4 seed out of the Gwinnett region. It would have been North Gwinnett, Norcross, Peachtree Ridge, and I think Mountain View maybe. All right, so Salam said he taught his team how to play football in his 3 years, with he and Ironside preaching football one-on-one during the offseason. They made sure the players understood the fundamentals and knew where to line up and where they were supposed to be on any given play. While most programs have that drilled into the players through middle school, freshman and JV, it was just one of the things that Osborne had to overcome and have its players learn on the fly. By the end, Salam said they worked as a team, won some games, and had a lot of fun doing it. Salam leaves the program as the 5th winningest coach in program history, though he had more wins than the last 10 head coaches combined, dating to 1997, and in much better shape than it was when he took over in 2021. That's important to me, Salam said, of the state of the program. There's still good players there. The administration is excellent. The coaching staff has been great, and I'm really proud of what we did. So there you have it. That news broke, let's see, that was on, yesterday. So that's a tough break for Osborne. We'll see where Coach Salam ends up. Maybe Coach Ironside, who has head coaching experience, maybe he stays and takes over. But the key for them is they got to keep building off of what they were able to do last year. A lot of guys that hadn't played the sport before high school were coming in and, as I said, learning on the fly. It's not easy to do when you're in a region with Walton, North Cobb, teams like that. So it's a big hole to fill, and hopefully the Cardinals will find their predecessor. All right, so let's look at some basketball news real quick. All right, so I was going to talk about how dominant Grayson is right now because they're in the national poll at this point. I think Kyle, Sandy had them the #1 girls team in the state. That's with teams like River Ridge and all the other powerhouses. I've seen AJC is already hinting that they might complete this regular season a perfect 25-0. The Grayson boys are also #1, so you have the potential of a historic sweep. That's going to be exciting, but this was the game that really stood out to me. That shows just how much better this Grayson team is this year. So they had about 4 girls transfer in, including Danielle Carnegie, one of the best players from Rockdale County last year. She has experience, making deep playoff runs, championship runs. She's been a key piece. They lost last year to North Paulding, which is a 17-4 team this year. They're top 10. They lost 47-46 in the playoffs. They matched up last month, and Grayson won that matchup 75-37. An absolute blowout, 38-point blowout, doubled their score, and that's a top 10 opponent. So I think that score right there highlights, like, this Grayson team, it is the real deal. Their most recent wins, they had 67-44 over Brookwood. Brookwood, despite losing a lot from last year, they're a team that's not going to get blown out recently. So they're just handling business. They beat McEachern 68-40, Norcross 59-37, and then Archer 82-44. Looks like defensively, offensively, they're playing very comfortable, and they were tested early on in the season. 55-52 OT win over Mount Barron. In some of the out-of-state games, they have also had to close out some close wins, including Blanche Eli 62-55, the big win over IMG Academy. And so I think they're battle tested, they're confident, but we haven't seen a favorite like this on the girls' side. Last year, number one team is Brookwood, but they had never won it before. But Grayson right now, they're just playing incredible, and the difference between last year and this year is huge. All right, so let's look at something else I wanted to mention, and I actually remembered this yesterday when Najee and I were talking about the girls wrestling, and so I have the story pulled up. This is the second year that girls wrestling has been a sport. Carrollton won the duels the first year. They won it last weekend. But last year, they struggled in terms of qualifying a lot of individuals for the traditional, and then they tied for second place, and Chastity ran away with it. It turns out that I think they had a player from North Cobb competing on their team, and so that got wiped out. So this year, unless something like this happens again, is going to be the first ever traditional girls championship handed out. So I have this story pulled up from last year. So the Chastity High School girls wrestling program will be forced to give up its 2023 traditional state championship. Hall County Schools Athletic Director Stan Lewis announced via press conference on Tuesday, saying the school had been handed down a list of sanctions due to an ineligible wrestler. The school has received sanctions for violations of GHSA bylaws. An ineligible wrestler was not carrying enough units per GHSA guidelines and competed during the second half of the season. That violation was realized on April 12th of 2023. It's probably a month after the championship, and the school self-reported to the GHSA. Chastity appealed the GHSA's decision once it was turned in and the sanctions were offered back, but it was denied. The school deeply regrets the error and is saddened by the impact on the athletes and the community. Along with the loss of the state championship, Chastity was fined $500 and the athlete must forfeit all victories. Chastity will forfeit all wins in which the wrestler competed while ineligible, including both the team and state title in the dual area championship, and the championship medals and trophies must be returned to the GHSA office. The Lady War Eagles have been put on severe warning status for one calendar year. So it's been a positive start for the sport of wrestling. Carrollton, they've done their thing at the duels. They got to host pretty much when it was at West Georgia last week, but obviously that wasn't the most ideal way to start the traditionals, to have to return medals and deal with this. So this is a big year for things to run smoothly, and I think the girls are going to be very motivated. Year 2, always going to run more smoothly because the girls know the calendar. They've been through the process before, so I think it's going to be exciting. We'll keep an eye on it, but just a note, when you hear year 2, this is going to be the first ever champion. So gear up for that. That is heading our way shortly. All right, so let's look at some of the other spring sports news. Okay, so I mentioned Walton and Lambert in boys lacrosse, 2 powerhouses. You could probably consider them favorites to, I wouldn't necessarily say win it, but be in that conversation. They're going to be top 5. They've proven they can win state titles before. I think West Forsyth, who won it last year, they're going to have to replace a ton from that team. They're very senior-led. They'll still be in the conversation, but from talking around to some of these coaches, North Gwinnett appears to be the best team out of Gwinnett this year. Buford's going to have its best ever team, but I'm hearing North Gwinnett, this is a very dangerous team, and that is how the season is going to start. A week from today, it is going to be at Walton, North Gwinnett at Walton. Doesn't get much bigger than that. Walton's going to have to turn around. They're going to play Milton on the 9th, and then they'll have their first region games. They got Campbell, South Forsyth. That's turned into a pretty bitter rivalry between those 2 programs. And then also in the month of February, Walton's going to host Buford. That'll be a top 10 battle. They're going to be at Westminster, good cross classification, top 10. They're going to visit North Cobb in region play. And then on March 1st, they're going to host Blessed Trinity, the defending state champ. So that's how they're starting the season schedule. It is going to be very exciting. And the lacrosse season, I mean, it is quick. Starts in February, wraps up in mid-April, and it is championship time. So that is on the horizon. A week from today, North Gwinnett at Walton. So let's take one more quick break, and we'll close it out on the other side.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
All right, so be sure to go to scoreatl.com later today. We will have our week, I believe, 12 basketball rankings posted, girls and boys. So a couple notes before we make these official. I'm just looking at some of the movement that stands out. I think in Class 7A boys, West Forsyth cracking these polls for the first time. I'm certainly going to have them in the top 10 on mine. I think they're a very dangerous team that definitely has earned its spot in the top 10. We saw them ball out at the Corky, Kell, Dave Hunter Invitational. In Class 6A, big storyline is Hughes is trending downwards a little bit. That is a very talented team, but ever since that region game against Alexander, they've dropped a couple games. They need to find their footing again. I still think they're a top 10 team, but you're seeing the Riverwoods, the Shilohs, and Alexander kind of separate themselves. So we'll see where Langston Hughes is going to land. In Class 5A, Warner Robins, that seems to be one of the hottest teams. Also, Maynard Jackson is making serious noise. Can they contend with Kell, who is just on another level right now? In Class 4A, Pace Academy is going to be back on top. They avenged that loss to McDonough. The first time around went 1 of 13 from 3-point. Second time around, 12 of 25. They dominated. So Pace is back on top. McDonough is only going to fall to number 2 because they did beat them earlier. But I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Baldwin this year. North Oconee has played much better. They had a similar situation that Pace did to McDonough, where they lost a close one to Seconder, and then they played again, blew them out by 25. Holy Innocents is going to be dangerous. New Hampstead had that thriller late comeback win over Benedictine. They're going to match up again this week. That'll be a big game to watch for. And then Madison County, Cherokee Bluff's not ranked, but they've been competitive as well, and I think they can potentially sneak into the playoffs in Region 8. And definitely don't count out Fayette County. They are a team that made it to the Final Four last year and then advanced to the finals. All right, in Class 3A, Sandy Creek and Cedar Grove, region rivals, bitter rivals, are now 1 and 2. We'll see how their remaining schedule is going to look, and they're probably going to have an inevitable meeting in the region tournament. In Class 2A, Westside Augusta has been on a tear. They've been playing 6A, 4A, and 7A programs all season long, and Thompson, who's number 2, just got served their first loss of the season last week by Westside Augusta. And then Class A Division 1, Seth Ellerby wrote a story on this one. That is the classification where there are 6 teams out of Region 8 that are in the top 10, and it is going to be one of the most competitive region tournaments we've ever seen, because the number 8 team is Athens Christian. They've beaten the number 1 team. All these teams within the region have beaten each other, and all are gonna have that state title as the ultimate goal this season, and they're gonna have to get into the playoffs first to give themselves a chance. And then Class A Division 2, Green Forest, I always figured they'd end up number 1 at some point this season, but they have surpassed Portal, Calhoun County, Christian Heritage, and the rest of the talented Class A Division 2 schools. So those will be up at scoreatl.com. We also have some other stories up there right now by Max. He highlights the Georgia high school alumni that are in this year's Super Bowl. That is always an exciting thing to watch. We'll see how big of an impact they have. Obviously, Harrison Butker from Westminster also played at Georgia Tech, was a legend there. He came up huge once again for the Chiefs, for us, in the last the last game against the Ravens, a big field goal, and that was like a 47-yarder that looked like it would have been good from at least 60. Harrison still has that leg. McCole Hardman, he didn't really make that big of an impact in the last game. Is an exciting player. Maybe we'll see him in the return game or getting involved in the Super Bowl. He was a legend at Elbert County, went to Georgia. Jalen Walton, defensive back from Laney High School. He's in his second season with the Chiefs, has an opportunity to get a ring. You got Wanya Morris, offensive tackle from Grayson on the Chiefs, and then Malik Heron from Mary Persons. As for the 49ers, Chris Conley from North Paulding, and obviously he used to be on the Chiefs. He played at Georgia. You got Charlie Warner from Rabun County, outstanding player, went to Georgia. Ty McGill from Wayne County, defensive tackle. He'll be suiting up as well for the 49ers. You can check that out at scoreatl.com, and that will be a big one. And then the other news, last point, Najee broke it this morning. Walton's Bam Bride commits to Grambling State. That is a huge deal. Bam is a very exceptional player on both sides of the football. He's one of the fastest guys with his closing speed in the secondary. And then he made some of the most elite catches I've seen this season. If you watch that Carrollton game, he was making over-the-shoulder sideline grabs that you only see the top talent in terms of receivers make in college or the NFL. That is not an easy catch to make. He just makes it look easy, and I really like this decision for him. I think he's going to have a chance to play and be a superstar there, and in his one season at Walton, he made a huge impact and can do a lot of different things. So congrats to Bam Bride, and I think that takes the tally up to, obviously he hasn't officially signed yet. He'll do that next week, but it's about 15 from that Walton class that are going to be not only playing at the next level, going to major programs. So that is huge. Congrats to that group. But that's it for now. We're going to return tomorrow at 2 p.m. for Keeping It Real with Najee Wilkins. And then I'll be back on Friday. And yeah, that closes out January. We'll see you tomorrow.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.